Back in 2004, Lisa and Wayne Yuen were at their home in Edison, New Jersey. It was a cold Friday night, and they were waiting for their son to call. When the phone finally rang, Lisa jumped to pick it up.
That Friday, we talked, and right away, Daniel was really upset.
Over the past year, their 16-year-old son had become a shell of his former self. He'd always been a loving son. He went on fishing trips with his dad. They built computers together. He was protective and caring of his younger sister.
Well, when Daniel was in elementary school, in middle school, he's fine. He never get into a fight with any people. He never get in any trouble. Okay.
But lately, he'd become sullen and withdrawn. Some days he even refused to get out of bed. And now, Daniel was calling from the other side of the country, warning his parents that they made a mistake.
You don't even know this is a really bad school. I don't want to stay.
He was very bad school.
Really bad school.
This is a bad school. Lisa says Daniel whispered these words, as if someone was listening in to his call.
So we say that no, Daniel, it's not true.
We say, Daniel, stay there. We give a try, okay? We're going to be there soon.
And you have to understand that at that point in time, we are desperate parents. We want our kid to be happy and able to finish school.
When Daniel started struggling, Lisa and Wayne looked everywhere they could for help. Counselors, therapists, doctors, Daniel's friends, and his school.
The high school offer us nothing. That's my frustration too. They don't care. Honestly, that's how I feel. And your kid survive. Your kid don't survive, drop out.
They tried sending him to psychiatrists, but none of it worked. Then one day, Wayne, in desperation, Googled boarding school for kids with depression. Up popped a link to a place called Cedu Running Springs, spelled CEDU, a program in California designed to help troubled teens. Even Daniel thought it looked promising.
He looked at the website and said, he looks good. He said,
He said, I'm willing to go see the school. That's what he said. Maybe he's already depressed, don't know what to do himself. And then he looked at this all the promising pictures and all these good comments, and he said, I go. That's why we bought a ticket. We went together.
Cedu Running Springs allows new residents to speak with their parents for 15 minutes every 2 weeks. And parents are given a handbook to help them understand what their kid might say about the place and how to respond.
The parents' handbook saying that your kid will tell you that this is a bad school. They don't want to stay.
And that is exactly what Daniel was telling his parents when he called for the first time since they dropped him off 5 days earlier. Daniel whispered to them, "This is a bad school.
Don't listen to the
listen to them. That's on the handbook."
Lisa and Wayne had bought plane tickets to visit Daniel in just a few weeks. Just hang in there, they told him.
And Daniel was upset and then starts saying that, I will run away if you're not going to pick me up.
School pulled the plug. They pulled the plug, disconnect us.
What do you mean?
When Daniel was upset and then starts saying that, I will run away if you're not going to pick me up, and that it disconnected.
And they're listening, and then they just disconnect.
The mistake we have is that I sent him to Cedu. We didn't know that it's such a bad school, and we were fooled by them.
I'm Josh Bloch, and this is The Lost Kids, a podcast from UCP Audio. Episode 1, Daniel.
Today, parents who say, I give up, I can't handle my wild teen anymore. I'd do anything, I'd send her away.
I'm pretty sure I saw a version of this exact episode on Sally Jessy Raphael or Maury Povich or Geraldo a half dozen times.
I fight, I do drugs, I'm very highly sexually active, man, no problem.
On a brightly lit stage sits a drug-addled or sex-addicted wayward teen and her desperate, exasperated parents.
I need respect. You need to shut your mouth.
Her hair, usually very dyed, or her face very pierced. She's labeled a wild teen.
Do you like the way your life is?
What do you think?
Yes, I like the way my life is, okay?
Jennifer?
You shut up, too!
The girl is not very nice, so she's shipped off to a program to straighten her out. Usually it's a boot camp that promises to transform her.
We're going to show you what goes on in a no-nonsense, tough-as-nails boot camp for wild teens.
Now you want to see what kind of an individual I actually am? Well, then you're going to find out! Get on your face!
We then see the girl being run through a montage of military drills. Sweating, crying, the drill sergeant barking orders at her.
You understand me? Get on your feet!
30 seconds later, 3 months have gone by.
Jennifer, come on out. Jennifer?
She walks out waving and smiling shyly. She looks like Marsha Brady. The audience smiles back, looking very pleased.
What are you giving your mom?
It's a bracelet, and it says, "I love you, Mom."
Okay.
I later learned there was another side to that story.
Congressional investigators found shocking new cases of abuse and even deaths at some of these tough love programs.
Many of these programs are intentionally engaged in deceptive marketing and presentations to desperate parents.
The new report says Martin Lee Anderson was brain dead when he was taken to the hospital after being kicked and punched by camp guards.
His parents told of how he died of dehydration and abuse after enduring weeks of forced hikes with little food or water.
His mother and I will never escape our decision to send our gifted 16-year-old son to his death.
Today, government investigators said many camps have poorly trained staffs, lack a state license, and often ignore cries for medical help.
We're a non-therapeutic program in the sense that we don't have licensed clinicians or psychiatrists doing therapy per se.
I always thought these programs went out of fashion or were shut down because of these scandals. I was wrong. Daniel Yuen's case opened my eyes to the billion-dollar so-called troubled teen industry. Boot camps are just one version of these behavioral modification programs. There are also wilderness programs and residential facilities. The boot camps tended to get more attention. But this podcast is about one of the most influential tough love programs that got very little media attention. It's called Sea-Doo Running Springs, and it's the program that Wayne and Lisa sent their son Daniel to. Over the 4 decades that it was in operation, thousands of kids like Daniel passed through Sea-Doo's doors. Sea-Doo claimed to be an option of last resort for desperate parents. Parents who were worried their kids would end up dead or in jail. But Lisa and Wayne say they were duped by the program. And many former residents say their experience at Sea-Doo has haunted them for the rest of their lives. Lisa and Wayne Yuen still live in the home where Daniel grew up, a 2-story house on a cul-de-sac in Edison, New Jersey.
Hi. Hi. I'm Wayne.
Josh.
Josh.
Nice to
Lisa.
meet you. Hi there.
Hi. Come on in.
The town is a melting pot of immigrant communities. It has a Chinatown, Little Korea, and Little India. Election ballots are printed in 5 languages. It's about an hour and a half from Manhattan.
We have a lot of pictures and...
That's me and Lisa. And this is even older, before marriage.
Oh my gosh, it must be in your early 20s then?
Something like that.
Photographs line the walls of Wayne and Lisa's dining room. There's one of the couple in their early 20s a few years after they met. Wayne is from Hong Kong. Lisa's from mainland China. They fell in love as students at Stony Brook College on Long Island. When Lisa got pregnant, she was working at a daycare in Manhattan.
And she said that I met couple Daniels, little kids, and they are very smart. So she liked the name, so we named our first child as Daniel.
And I make more than one Daniel. I said 2 of them. They're so cute, they're so adorable, and until now, I keep saying like maybe I choose the wrong name. Okay, sometimes I just say maybe this name is not. If I choose different name, this will not happen to me. I keep saying that. I don't know.
People's fate maybe written before you were born. It's maybe had nothing to do with the name. Don't beat up yourself.
There's a photo of Daniel at 2 in a mini tuxedo with a red bow tie and cummerbund. In another photo, he's about 8, wearing a captain's hat, grinning next to a human-sized chipmunk at Disneyland. There's also a family photo from just before he went to Sea-Doo Running Springs. Everyone is smiling but Daniel, who stares intensely at the camera. I recognize the picture from the missing persons posters.
Is it possible that you could sit here and then I'll just be able to...
Lisa brings out a heaping plate of biscotti, and we sit down at the dining room table. Wayne rests his forearms on the table and leans towards me as we speak.
Can you take me back to the day when you noticed that he was behaving different, that something was going on for him that concerned you?
I saw him, and then he walked to across the street from high school. There's a park over there. He smoked. I almost had passed out, okay? In my family, there's nobody smoked, okay? I don't even know where he learned. But then for me, it's not acceptable, okay? I right away, I confront him. We go to buy those
nicotine
pack right away. And then he tried it. He feel no good. He's too strong.
Daniel didn't end up at Sea-Doo Running Springs because he was caught smoking. But that incident in his sophomore year in high school was a turning point.
I remember that day very vividly when I found out that Lisa drove by. I was like, oh my God.
Nick Galeda was Daniel's best friend.
Shit's gonna hit the fan.
Nick drives me to the scene of the crime.
I have not been in this parking lot in ages. So this is welcome to J.P. Stevens.
J.P. Stevens High School is huge. There were 800 students in Daniel and Nick's grade.
My group of friends were definitely not the cool kids. That were not invited to the preppy kids' house parties. We weren't the preppy kids. We were the ones that didn't go to the high school football games. So I guess we were known as the losers, maybe. Who knows? Yeah, maybe that's that. Maybe that's what it was.
Nick and Daniel had been friends since 7th grade when they were assigned to work on a science project together. And Daniel brought his pet lizard over to Nick's house.
And it was the most wildest thing to me because I was like, damn, my parents didn't even let me have a dog. This guy's got a lizard as a pet. And it was the coolest thing. And I mean, ever since that day, we were close. We were good friends.
They grew up playing video games and swimming in Nick's backyard pool and watching Daniel's favorite Chinese comedies.
His family was really awesome. His parents were just always nice to me. I would go over there, and they were just, they'd cook me dinner. I was probably at that house, I want to say at least 5 times a week,
In their freshman year of high school, they both joined the football team. It didn't last very long. They both dropped out before Christmas. But eventually they formed their own posse of less athletic friends. And like a lot of kids their age, they started to drink and occasionally smoke.
And that's what we would do. Not all the time, but every once in a while.
And they would often stay out late.
Because we just wanted to hang out with one another, right? We would go out at midnight just on drives. Not even get in trouble. The one thing we did like to do was check out weird New Jersey places. That was like a thing to do back in the day growing up. There used to be books of old abandoned homes, to weird places of sightings that people might have saw ghosts and stuff, and we'd go to those places. That was our fun thing to do. Not doing drugs and everything else that every parent's worst nightmare.
Daniel's parents didn't like that he was staying out so late, especially when they noticed his grades were sliding.
When Dan got a C+, it was like I got an F, his parents just had those high standards, and I loved them for it, but you can always imagine how that must have felt for him. I noticed that they were definitely reprimanding him more. It's not out of the norm. My parents did the same thing to me too. But they were starting to try to confine him more from going out. So I guess when you shut that off, kids will rebel, right? I did. Dan definitely did, but Dan took it very hard, very hard.
How could you tell? How is he behaving differently?
He was just very, very stressed about it. He was very stressed about it.
Daniel was having a hard time shaking that stress. Nick noticed that Daniel's mood was changing. He seemed more angry, confrontational. And it got worse when he got a crush on a girl who wouldn't pay him much attention.
It started to take a toll on him. I mean, it was beating him up inside. You know, this girl that he liked wouldn't really return the affection. You know, he wasn't winning over this girl, no matter what he was doing. Dan was always a quiet guy, so I think as we started to get closer to the point where his parents shipped him away, he started just shutting himself off from the world.
Just a couple months into Daniel's 10th grade, it started to become clear that Daniel was struggling with something more than just unrequited love and stress from schoolwork. Wayne and Lisa received a progress report from his high school. It showed he was failing every class.
We tried to help him out on the school. You know, we asked him, "Do you need help?" And at that point in time, he's rebelling age too. He does not want to listen to us. He stay late out, with his friends, with his classmates. He does not like to study hard, and then eventually stop going to school. We believe that he fall in love with a girl, and then later on that they break off, and Daniel get into a really bad depression. But he didn't tell us at all about that. He's depressed. We noticed he's depressed too.
So what did you notice when you say he's depressed? What did you notice?
He have no interest on doing anything, and on his face you can tell. You know, he feels sad.
Were you able to have conversations about what was going on for him emotionally?
He does not want to talk about it. He stopped going to school, stay in the basement in his room, wake up real late, and then go out and come home real late. When I have a chance to talk to him, that I said, "Daniel, what happened? How are you?" And I remember that was in the morning, and he said that I feel sad. I don't want to live anymore. And I said, no, let's go out to eat. So I took him out to eat and things like that, and have some conversation with him, so he feel better. But he refused to tell us almost anything. He keep everything in his own mind.
Wayne bites down on his upper lip, trying to control his emotions.
We took him to a psychiatrist.
Did the psychiatrist ever give you a diagnosis?
The diagnosis is agitated depression.
Daniel actually went to see 3 different psychologists or psychiatrists. All 3 diagnosed him with depression. He attended regular therapy sessions, but Wayne says none of it helped. Over the course of just a few months that fall of 2003, Daniel had retreated from school and from his family. By January, Daniel had stopped going to school altogether. The Yuen say a high school counselor advised them to take Daniel to see a judge who could threaten Daniel with juvenile detention for skipping school. The Yuens were not interested. One psychiatrist recommended a boarding school in Connecticut. The Yuens toured the campus, but Daniel said he didn't want to go, and the school wouldn't take a student who was not willing to be there. It turns out, not every program shares that philosophy.
Growing up is so unpredictable. There's really no way of knowing what will work. It's different for every child because every child is different.
This is a promotional video for CEDU and their programs in California and Idaho.
But one thing is certain. The potential is there, waiting to be realized. And it's often just a matter of figuring out the right way to release it. That's what emotional growth education is all about.
In the video, you see kids exploring CEDU's picturesque campuses, hiking, chopping wood, and inside working on computers, studying. A staff member gently rests her hand on the shoulder of a crying resident. There are also lots of smiling kids looking pensively off into the distance.
The pioneer in this kind of experience is Sea-Doo education. Developed in 1967, Sea-Doo helps young people reach their true potential.
Sea-Doo bills itself as a therapeutic boarding school, a mix of academics and group counseling, which they refer to as emotional growth. According to their brochure, Sea-Doo has a great deal of experience with students who are manipulative, unmotivated, and lacking in direction.
It's a place where your child will be safe and part of another loving family for a while.
Sea-Doo's alumni include celebrities like Paris Hilton and children of celebrities like Roseanne Barr, Barbara Walters, and Neil Diamond.
We take pride in our goal that we never give up on a child. And the results tell the story.
This is the version of Sea-Doo that Wayne and Lisa were sold on.
Ours is a picture on the mountain trees, and then they have a picture of the student, they're smiling, the picture of the teachers, teaching.
Happy face, and then also comments say, you come to the right place and we will collect all the problems.
Daniel agreed that the place looked welcoming. Wayne called the toll-free number. He says he was told that the school was equipped to handle Daniel's depression, and he could enroll mid-year. The program would take 2 years to complete. Tuition wasn't cheap, almost $60,000 a year. But they were told that by the end of it, Daniel would be ready for college both intellectually and emotionally. Wayne and Lisa were willing to pay the price. They would dip into their 401k and take a second mortgage on their house.
And, maybe that time is a wishful thinking.
I won't ever forget that night. He told me we took a walk around the block.
On a cold night in January in 2004, Nick and Daniel went for a walk. They would do that sometimes, like two old men. Walk out past Golf Edge Park near Nick's house. Maybe smoke a cigarette.
And he was like, my parents are sending me to this camp. And again, the way I felt about it, I just didn't want to accept it. So I was like, man, I don't want you going there. I don't think it's a good idea. It's not going to make anything better. Because this is what he said to me. He goes, my parents want me to go, and I think I'm going to do it for them.
Nick couldn't understand it. They weren't bad kids. It's not like they were doing heroin or cocaine or committing crimes. Why send them off to a program for problem kids?
I think the night before he left, we all slept at our friend's house. I'll never forget this, though, man. We all got together because we knew he was leaving. And we were sitting there at that counter in that kitchen. And we just kept saying to him, if anything goes wrong, you call me. If you don't want to be there, you call us, we'll come get you. So I guess the next day we must have went out somewhere. Dan's parents picked us up to drop me off. Gave him a hug, kissed him on the cheek, threw him back into the van. Hit my head on the way out. He hit his head on the way out. And I just remember crying, walking back in. I couldn't even look at his parents. I don't blame them, though.
On January 25th, 2004, Wayne, Lisa, and Daniel flew from New Jersey to Los Angeles. They made the 2-hour drive to San Bernardino before turning onto a winding road which climbs 6,000 feet through the rugged San Bernardino mountains. They eventually drove through the small town of Running Springs and then turned into the front gate of Sea-Doo, past the wooden sign that reads, "To dream the impossible dream." Sea-Doo arranged for another Asian student to give Daniel and his parents a tour of the 76-acre campus.
When we were there, it's less pretty than the picture, but it looks organized, and the kids looks happy. And the Asian kid helped us to tour the school, didn't say anything bad about the school.
The Yuens walked through the main lodge, which sits right on the edge of the mountain and has a dramatic view that stretches all the way down to San Bernardino. They walked out to the tennis courts and swimming pool, and the boys' dorms and classrooms in separate buildings. The residents, all high school aged, walked around campus wearing shirts carefully tucked into their pants. Lisa noticed that there was no fence around the property, and many doors had no locks on them. She wondered how they stopped kids from running off the property. After the tour, they returned to the admissions office.
At the end of the tour, and then we are in one room.
Daniel was pretty sad. I can see him. He said, "I don't want to go to come to school." Then we kind of like, oh my goodness, we were flying all the way here, and then I said, do you want to try at least? And he said no.
Daniel had changed his mind about coming to this place. Even though they'd flown all the way out here, he wanted to go back home. Wayne says at that point a staff member intervened and suggested that Daniel speak to the dean of the program.
He took him to the other room, and then we were sitting in a room, really nervous. Really nervous what's going on.
According to Wayne, 20 minutes later, the staff member came back without Daniel, and she said that after speaking with the dean, Daniel had agreed to stay, and that the best thing to do is to leave rather than drawing out a goodbye. The Yuens don't know what the dean said to Daniel. I wanted to ask the dean myself, but he didn't return my email.
And then they advised us that maybe you just go home now before Daniel changes his mind. And it's just a trial, and you can come back next week to pick him up. You can come back tomorrow to pick him up. And as I said, okay, so we just leave.
Wayne went out to the car and got Daniel's suitcase. And then Lisa and Wayne drove down the mountain and then flew back to New Jersey without him. It was 5 days after dropping Daniel off at Sea-Doo that the Yuens were able to speak with him just that one time on the phone. Daniel said he would run away if they didn't come and pick him up, and the phone call was disconnected. Wayne and Lisa called Sea-Doo back. They got nowhere, never hearing from Daniel. Only reassurances from staff that everything is okay.
I call Monday, Tuesday, every day.
They have someone that assigned that to Daniel's case. I call that person. We call that person every single day. He said he's fine. Daniel's happy. Daniel have friend. The girls look at him. Things like that. But we cannot talk to Daniel directly.
A week passed. The Yuens started to get more anxious. In their only conversation with Daniel, he was so upset. They wanted to be able to hear his voice and know that everything was okay. And then, on Sunday, February 8th, 2004, 10 days after Daniel enrolled at Sea-Doo, they finally got a call from the program.
A staff call that said Daniel ran away. We reported that to the police.
Daniel had walked off the campus that morning, and no one could find him.
So it's better.
Numb, completely numb. We were like,
kind of paralyzed. What was do?
What's happening? And run away, and then
we said, what should we do?
What should we do? And then they said, we already report to the police, and then maybe you should hire a private investigator, and then he's pretty good. He find everyone.
The police had been notified. They were looking for Daniel. Staff also recommended hiring a private investigator. He was someone who had worked with Sea-Doo before. In fact, he told the Yuens he had tracked down dozens of runaways. The Yuens were surprised. Daniel wasn't the only kid to run away from Sea-Doo. It seems what was going on inside that place was vastly different from what parents were promised. That's what we'll be looking into. What exactly was going on there? What were Wayne and Lisa not being shown? I discovered that it wasn't dozens of kids who had run away. It was likely in the hundreds. children reported missing, assumed to be runaways, some never found. Why would teenagers risk their lives by running into a vast and dangerous wilderness to escape a place that was supposed to save them? Next time on The Lost Kids.
It was just full-on interrogation for 4 hours. And I sat there and took it all in and was terrified. Like primal fear, terrified. Like I thought I needed to get out of that room and off that campus.
Child number 1 was not provided appropriate meals for at least 3 days. This is reportedly a usual practice for any children who do not comply with the facility program.
I mean, by today's standard, it would all be illegal. You're not allowed to touch students at all. We were always all over each other.
And staff and students.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think it was a form of brainwashing?
In a sense, yes.
Kids would come to that school because parents were absolutely desperate for some kind of help and because they thought their kids were killing themselves. We were trying to save lives. And sometimes you do things that might be extreme. We weren't miracle workers, but we certainly produced a miracle or two.
This podcast was produced by David McDougall, Kathleen Goldhar, and me. Our associate producer is Max Miller. Sound design and mixing by Mitchell Stewart. Additional producing by Medium Anonymous and Todd Nilssen. Executive producing by Amanda McPhillips, Nathan Ament, Kathleen Goldhar, and myself. This is a UCP audio podcast. For more information, go to our website, ucpaudio.com.